Alright, good evening folks, it's Enforcer Matt and welcome back to another Short War video, and today we have very big news coming out of England, North Korea, and also the Middle East. But by far our biggest piece of news of the day, we are hearing off the coast of England as we just got word that a tanker ship, which is supposed to bring oil and petroleum products to the US military in the event of a war or national emergency, it has gotten in a collision with another ship and it is now on fire, and it's a very big maritime disaster taking place right off the coast of England right now, and that is a very bad situation. We also have news as well that North Korea is reacting strongly to the recent exercises around South Korea by the US military, and they've launched off several unidentified ballistic missiles, and we currently have that news as well. And right now there are currently talks ongoing in Saudi Arabia between US and Ukraine officials to potentially restart Ukraine military aid very quickly, even without a signed mineral agreement for Ukraine's minerals. So we have big news to cover today, and let's jump into our first post, which goes to BNO News. And this is by far our biggest story of the day. Right now we are seeing from BNO News that a cargo ship and an oil tanker is on fire after colliding off of East Yorkshire in England. And this is a very big situation because it turns out the oil tanker is a part of the Strategic Oil Program, which is supposed to supply the US military with oil and petroleum in the event of a wartime scenario. So it's not just any oil tanker that was hit, it's a very crucial one. It's one of 10 of these tankers that is supposed to supply oil to the US military, and apparently a cargo ship rammed right into it, and it's not really clear right now if this was an accident or what was happening, but of course they're right in the middle of the ocean and two ships are colliding, which of course needs a thorough investigation. But as you can see, both ships are on fire right there in that video, so not a good situation happening between that. But also moving into our next post here, this one goes to Inside Geopolitics, and we have gotten confirmation in this post from the US military. They've confirmed that the oil tanker was en route to the US Navy Sea Lift Command, and the cargo ship, which apparently collided with it, had sodium cyanide on board that collided with the oil tanker, which also had jet fuel on board the oil tanker, which is bringing this oil and petroleum to the US military. So once again, the ship that was hit that is responsible for bringing the oil to the US military is called the Stena Immaculate, and it's one of 10 tankers designed to bring oil to the US Army during national conflict or national emergencies. So once again, a very crucial vessel, and it looks like it has been hit. And we also have some more information here in our next post, which goes to Fitex News. And this post right here gives us some more details about the vessel that actually rammed into, allegedly, the Stena Immaculate. And right here we can see that the Portuguese flagged vessel called the Solong is allegedly the one that rammed into the Stena Immaculate, and it was substantiating earlier reports as well. And apparently the Stena Immaculate had jet fuel on board, which is the US Department of Defense vessel, and the cargo vessel had also some accelerants on board as well. So not good. It was a recipe for disaster, actually, these two vessels colliding. And once again, just to reiterate it, apparently the MV Stena Immaculate was reflagged by a private company in August, and it is a part of the Tanker Security Program, which is created by the DoD to supply the US military with oil in times of need. So once again, this is one of 10 vessels, so it's not the end of the world, but still, it's a big deal because it's 1 out of 10 vessels now taken out in case a war does break out. So very interesting. I'll be very curious to see the results of the investigation as to why exactly this occurred and what exactly is this cargo vessel that rammed into it allegedly. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to AZ Intel. And let's switch gears here for just a second and jump into our North Korean news, because we've gotten word about 13 hours ago that North Korea fired several suspected ballistic missiles, according to the media Yonhap. We've also gotten word today that the Joint Chiefs of Staff announced that at approximately 1:50 p.m. on the 10th, they detected several unidentified ballistic missiles launched from inland areas of North Korea's Hwanghae province toward the West Sea. So once again, this is in response allegedly by North Korea to the military exercises taking place around South Korea, which is once again in coordination with US authorities. So North Korea was saying they were going to do something. It's unclear if this is the extent of the North Korean response, but once again, it is another missile test according to what we're hearing in reports, and this is the response by the North Korean officials. So this was somewhat expected, but we'll have to wait and see if there's anything else that also follows up with this. And once again, it is a little bit unusual they fired several missiles at the same time, because North Korea does not have a massive stockpile of missiles, but nothing too crazy according to what we've heard. But jumping onto our next article here, this one goes to Polymarket Intel. Also something that's popping off today as well is right near Iran. Apparently Russia, China, and Iran are holding joint military drills at Iran's Chabahar port, and we can see here on the video that the vessels are pulling up, and they've actually entered Iranian territory, their territorial waters right now, and now Russia, China, and Iran are aligning themselves together in the midst of possible attacks on Iranian infrastructure by Israel. So we do see that taking place today, and once again, the axis of evil is getting even closer together, and now they're forming even closer together during these exercises as well. So there's that piece of news as well that is currently happening at the moment. But jumping jumping into our next post here, this one goes to AZ Intel once again. And let's switch gears again because now we have some news about Ukraine and the potential negotiations happening between US officials and Ukrainian officials in Saudi Arabia. And today we saw the US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. He landed in Saudi Arabia where he'll be meeting with Ukrainian officials. So once again, for some reason, Saudi Arabia is a favorite spot for the negotiations between the US and Ukraine, probably because they consider it maybe neutral. I guess that's my only assumption right there. But as you can see, the Secretary of State is currently there and he's currently meeting with Ukrainian officials, and we're getting actually some very positive words out of the meeting, which is a good sign. But of course, only time's going to tell how it actually turns out. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to Insider Paper. And to give you all a clue as to exactly what is going to be discussed at this meeting, we are hearing, according to Kyiv officials, that Ukraine plans to propose a sky and sea ceasefire at Saudi Arabia talks with the US. So once again, a limited ceasefire, not a total ceasefire, of course. The one thing that Ukraine objects to is a ground ceasefire, and it looks like a partial ceasefire might be something the US is willing to consider. And of course, the ultimate result of this is to restart military aid to Ukraine and to do something to appease US officials to ensure that Ukraine has the armaments they need to keep fighting Russia in the future. So that is currently what they're waiting to hear, is whether or not the US is going to give in to that and actually help Ukraine right now. But jumping into our next post here, this one goes to us on Twitter at It's the Enforcer. And the positive news we are currently hearing, and in our post right here, we did write that early reports claim that the US may resume military aid to Ukraine without a signed mineral agreement. And of course, that's a big if right now. It depends on the situation hinging on these talks in Saudi Arabia. And once again, until we hear the result of these talks, we don't really know what the situation is, but we are hearing rumors. And once again, I want to reiterate this, it's just rumors for right now that the US might resume military aid very, very soon, maybe within the next couple of days, if these talks in Saudi Arabia go pretty well. So if it does not require a signed mineral agreement, I think that Ukraine might go ahead and do something to get that aid flowing back to Ukraine, which would of course basically put the Ukrainians in a great position to keep fighting the Russians, which is what they really need right now. So it's very promising, but only time's going to tell, so take it with a grain of salt. But with that, folks, that is actually our last piece of news for the day. You might notice that today's short war video is a little bit shorter than usual, and honestly, that's because there was a massive Twitter outage this morning, and sadly, we were not able to compile the news as usual. And also, honestly, there's not a whole bunch of stories today, but of course, the stories that we do have are quite massive, as you can see right there in the summary. So that was the length of the short war video today. So be sure to join us again tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern on our next Nightly War News stream. And before you go, smack the like button and also leave a comment down below and put LSA down there to let us know you watched the video to this point. Now, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people watched the video to this point today because it's much shorter than usual. But also, if you want to support the channel financially, you can go do so on our Patreon page, and the link is in the description below for Patreon, where you can go over there and sign up for a monthly membership and support the channel that way, which is a very big help, and we appreciate it very much, and that is what helps to keep the channel running. And of course, we do thank all of our Patreon supporters for making that possible, and once again, thank you all for subscribing. And with that, folks, we'll see you all on Tuesday at 10 p.m. Eastern, and with that, bye-bye for now.